feel like a lot of my motivation in reading a lot is the hunt, the search for that next book that's really going to offer me a new perspective and change me in some way. I've had a handful of these experiences in my life, and today I put together a list of books that I think can offer you the same kind of thing. I've picked 5 books across a broad range of categories, and they all offer something a little bit different depending on what kind of experience you're looking for. But all of them, I think, have the potential to be life-changing. Before we get into it, I'd like to give a big thank you to Noom for sponsoring this video, and more about them later on.
It's not what we get that makes us happy, it's who we become, how we live our life, who we are as a person. People can take away all the things, but who you become, no one can take away.
If you're one of my subscribers, you'll already be very familiar with the fact that I used to be obese. But more than that, I used to be very, I would say apathetic, I guess. I was kind of just wasting my life unintentionally. And then one day I picked up this book. I know people like to hate on Tony Robbins, but reading this book changed my life more than any other book I've ever read. And was kind of the catalyst for not only me losing weight for good, but me becoming interested in behavior change, which is basically what I research now for fun or this YouTube channel or whatever. It had a huge impact on me. It really helped me see that life is not infinite. If you want to change, you need to start now, and you need to start by taking action on the things that are important to you, getting organized and getting to know what the hell it is that you actually want, and then going for it, making a plan to go for it full tilt. For whatever reason, this book was like the inciting incident to me kind of becoming the person I am today and kind of waking up from my weird cloud of apathy or whatever was going on with me at that time in my life. For a while there, I was so crazy about Tony Robbins that I wanted to name my first dog Tony. And I would literally try and force this book on anyone who would hear anything about it. I was so convinced it would change everyone's life that I was buying copies and offering them to people. It was craziness. A lot of people chide Tony Robbins for being Tony Robbins, but also not being evidence-based. I've read a lot of psych books in my life, and every so once in a while, a psychologist will take a little chunk out of Tony Robbins and his methods. But as someone who has read all about behavior change, I mean, maybe not every single tactic he uses is based on science, but he certainly has done his research. You can definitely tell, and there is at least some of his methods are evidence-based. Obviously, he's a little over the top. He's not for everyone, but he's still the king of self-help, and he will definitely get you pumped up and motivated to make a change if that's what you're looking for. Like anything, his methods are not going to resonate with everyone, but when it hits, it really hits.
If you give yourself just a little bit of time, and if you'll be a little more loving to yourself, I think you're going to find you got a lot to give. I can fucking feel it.
This video is sponsored by Noom. Now, as I've experienced firsthand, there's a lot of controversy around these apps, but I feel that Noom is offering something different than what's currently out there. I view their approach of blending education, technology, and support and accountability via live coaches as potentially powerful at helping people change, and therefore something worth promoting. Because although clearly this app isn't perfect, and it's definitely not going to be a good fit for everyone, I think for the right person, these 3 things together could be the leverage that they need to help them make a change toward getting healthier. I mentioned this in my previous video about how Noom uses behavior change science to help you build healthy habits, which you can see here. Their daily lessons teach you how to change your thoughts and feelings toward food and toward yourself. If you're open-minded and genuinely engaged with the lessons that they have for you each day, the skills that Noom teaches you can definitely help you on the path to losing weight for good and getting healthy. That being said, they do have you doing things such as weighing yourself daily and tracking your food, which, though those are standard elements of behavior change science, and specifically for weight loss, those things are correlated with success. They're not for everyone, and if you have a history that you don't think would mesh well with that, it might not be for you. If it does sound like a good fit for you, you can click the link in the description box to take your 30-second quiz to get started.
The ultimate freedom is always and remains always reserved to ourselves. That is the freedom to take a stand to whatever conditions might confront us. How we react to the unchangeable conditions is up to ourselves. In other words, if we cannot change a situation, we have always the last freedom to change our attitude to that situation.
This book is the type of book where if everybody in the world read it, the world would be a better place for it. You can see my copy still has like a little post-it note on it because this is another book that I was just trying to force onto everyone who was like within 10 feet of me. This book has sold something like 10 million copies or something like that. It's a really, really popular book, and for good reason. If you haven't heard of it before, the author, Viktor Frankl, was an Austrian psychologist during World War II and a survivor of the Holocaust, shuttled between different Nazi concentration camps. This book is really haunting. I can remember vividly some of his descriptions of life in the camps. I remember particularly one moment that really, really stuck with me and still kind of, I don't know, it gives you a really bad feeling, I guess, when you think about it. He's describing a Nazi soldier, and he's holding his hand on his elbow, and he's pointing with kind of a limp wrist, just really kind of lackadaisically, directing them to different lines that they can go to. And the one line, you would continue on in the camp and you would get assigned a role, and the other line was essentially being sent to death. Completely casually, as if the decision really had no value or no weight. Sending people to their death, like with a limp wrist. I don't know, something about that just really stuck with me and kind of just shocked me. I know this book probably sounds very depressing, and it definitely has its moments, but overall, it's not depressing. It's emotional for sure, but at the end of it, it fills you with gratitude and awe toward humanity, really. Viktor Frankl wants to make it very clear that even though there are those moments in the book, that's not what the book is about. In particular, he was observing different people's attitudes and reactions to the situation that they found themselves in, and really how certain attitudes and hope and love and meaning kept people alive, literally more so than food or better health did. Having hope meant surviving, and giving it up or not having it anymore for whatever reason usually meant a quick death.
Despair is suffering without meaning. As long as an individual cannot see any meaning in his or her, no meaning in the suffering, will certainly be prone to despair and, under certain conditions, to suicide. But at the moment they can see a meaning in their suffering, they can mold it into an achievement, they can mold their predicament into an accomplishment on the human level. They can turn their tragedies into a personal triumph. But they must know for what. What should I do with it?
Shines a light on your own ability to take control of your attitude. Like when you witness what these people went through and how some people reacted, how they were able to maintain such, I don't know what the word would be, faith, I guess, in themselves, in life, in goodness, whatever, anything, you can't possibly walk away from it not being better in some way, I think. You leave this book with an incredible awe toward what we can withstand, and really toward the magnitude of the human will to survive. I think it also kind of leaves you with a kind of comfort in the knowledge that as a human being, you have the power to not only overcome adversity, but come back stronger from it. It's a small book, it's a quick read, but it's potentially the most life-changing book on this entire list. It is an incredible read. I can't recommend this one enough.
Struck me was the amount of serious science, double-blind experiments, focus, you name it, neuroscience, they do everything to make us crave their food. And they're extremely competitive. I mean, when you talk about your Coke, or the other products, these are cutthroat, no-holds-barred killers.
They're doing what companies do, which is make as much money as possible by selling as much product as possible, and they do that by hiring the smartest people they can find to formulate, engineer, market their foods.
This book is a fascinating piece of journalism. It's riveting from cover to cover. Some of it is so outlandish that it literally reads like a conspiracy theory. It boggles the mind that what this man is saying is true and that it's allowed to happen. It's sometimes subsidized to happen. And it's happening in the midst of an obesity epidemic and nobody is doing anything to stop it. If this book was a required reading, the food manufacturing and fast food companies would be in big, big trouble. Salt, sugar, fat will make you very angry. It'll make you sad. It'll make you maybe even a little sick. Honestly, it is a disturbing read.
If you want to look at something that's making lots of people sick, look at what our industry is intentionally adding to their products, sugar and fat, and it's the holy trinity. It's the holy grail, if you will, of
Unholy
ingredients.
trinity.
Well, it's been called that, on which the processed food industry survives and focuses so much of their effort.
It will really, really make you look twice at what you put in your mouth and in your body. And it is also excellent, healthy eating fuel when you see just how hard these boys are working to get a little chunk of your wallet with absolutely no consideration to the potential impact to your health. And I think this book deserves to be on the life-changing list because number one, we all eat a lot. A lot of us are eating processed food. We're eating more processed food than real food these days. Not only does it have you questioning what you're eating and questioning the food industry in general, it really just opens your eyes to how things work behind the scenes. And it makes you question, what other broken systems are there that are allowed to proliferate and even benefit from government subsidies or anything else like that? Particularly systems that are dealing with something as basic and vital as the food supply. It really does blow your mind that this is allowed to go on. It will make you never want to eat an Oreo again, knowing that it's not some grandma's hit recipe from back in the day, but rather a feat of engineering. Designed to be delicious, but not so delicious that it can ever really satiate your desire for it, but instead just provokes you to eat more and more and more. The contrast between the last book where it was all sentimental and this book where I'm really literally irate telling you about it. But it's a really, really good read, despite how angry you'll probably be throughout the entire thing. This book is well worth your time and definitely has the potential to be life-changing and change you in some way. I know it changed me.
If you want the truth to stand clear before you, never be for or against. The struggle between for and against is the mind's worst disease. Ask yourself, do you accept this? Do you accept stepping out of the battle of good and evil? Can you be not for or against anything?
Jonathan Haidt is a brilliant psychologist, and I didn't just choose one of his books. I decided to put all three in as one book because I feel like depending on your interests, these books really have the potential to change your life. And any of his three books will offer you a new perspective and really open up your worldview. The Happiness Hypothesis has to be one of my favorite books of all time. If you're a subscriber of mine, you've definitely heard some of his ideas in my videos. I took a lot from it. And I really loved this book. It's really a look at some of the most important ideas of all time about human well-being or happiness. Ideas that have been around and passed down and changed and throughout different things like philosophy and religion, and ideas that now we can test with science and see how they fare toward what we know. So it's really, really epic book. It teaches you a lot about people and what really does make us happy and fulfilled and that kind of thing. It's a great book. I can't recommend it enough. Although I love this book though, it's actually not what made me put Haidt on the list. This book is why I put Haidt on the list. Politics and religion, two things I'm typically not super interested in hearing more about, honestly. But in this instance, he's not so much looking at those things. He is, but not so much looking at those things as he is the belief systems that make them come about. He's really specifically talking about the belief systems that are at work when people are in passionate disagreement about something, and how our biases really make us blind to the perspective of other people.
You can't just go charging in saying you're wrong and I'm right. Because as we just heard, everybody thinks they are right. And if you want to change other people, a much better way to do it is to first understand who we are, understand our moral psychology, understand that we all think we're right, and then step out, even if it's just for a moment, step out of the moral matrix, just try to see it as a struggle playing out in which everybody does think they're right, and everybody at least has some reasons. Even if you disagree with them, everybody has some reasons for what they're doing. That's the essential move to cultivate moral humility, to get yourself out of this self-righteousness, which is the normal human condition.
Although the other book is one of my favorite books, this is the one that really made me different. And what it did for me was it really made me a lot more open and tolerant to ideas that I might have been harsh on before, or I might have judged, or I might have just shut off myself to and not listened to at all because I thought they were invalid. Above that, it also helped me to see that no matter how logical or fair we all try to be in some instances, we're truly not capable of understanding certain things from other people's perspective. So therefore, it's not really fair to harshly judge something that even we think is, assuredly terrible kind of thing. It really kind of brings home the message that no one's right and no one's wrong in most instances. And you might think that you're arguing apples to apples, but a lot of the time you're arguing apples to oranges. You're having a completely different conversation based on your different belief systems and different perspectives, which I think is a particularly important mindset in the kind of divisive landscape we find ourselves in right now. And Haidt's third book, The Coddling of the American Mind, is also great. I listened to the audiobook, so I don't have a physical copy, but that one, again, will expand your worldview in a different direction. All three offer totally different experiences, but all could potentially really offer you a new perspective.
A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials.
I took a lot of philosophy in university, and to be honest, I fucking hated it. And more than that, philosophy as you study it in school is oftentimes just not really what you would hope it would be. At least it was not what I hoped it would be. It's very complex and it's not really applicable to everyday life in a lot of instances. But through chance, I ended up reading a little bit of non-esoteric philosophy in my life. Now, I'm not an expert. I've actually read only a handful of books in this category, but it has really made an impact on me, and they can be very, very enjoyable reads, and that is what put them on this list. For me, I really enjoy philosophy when it deals with how to live well or how to live a good life. And apparently at one point in philosophy, this was the principal goal of philosophy, to discover the best way for man to live. At one point, I was fortunate enough to pick up Seneca's Letter from a Stoic. And you can see mine is really well loved and well worn. I think I've read it like 2 or 3 times, I think. One of the best quotes in this entire book is, "Of this one thing make sure against your dying day, that your faults die before you do." I found that so inspiring as like a way to live. And if you think about it, that's kind of like what I'm doing now. I'm trying to work on myself and change through behavior change to make sure my faults die before I do. Seneca was a Stoic philosopher, and Stoic philosophy in general is very popular right now. I think largely due to Ryan Holiday, which if you know who that is, he's the author of Ego is the Enemy, as well as a few other books. I used to be obsessed with Ryan Holiday's book lists when I was younger in university and I wanted to be in PR. He put me onto this. He also recommends Marcus Aurelius and Epicurus. I read Marcus Aurelius. I didn't like him as much as Seneca, but he is supposedly much better than Seneca. So if you don't like Seneca, then you could try Marcus Aurelius. Along the same lines, Bertrand Russell is really, really good for some non-esoteric philosophy. He's super readable and deals a lot with everyday life, and his Conquest of Happiness made a big, big impact on me when I read it. Bertrand Russell's books were the first ones I've read 3 of them, were the first books to make me kind of interested in thinking in general, honestly. Like thinking as a constructive way to spend time. Before that, I hadn't really considered it as like something I would be doing with my time, but it definitely did. It prompted me to do that. It prompted me to question things more and to really enjoy thinking more. I don't know how to phrase that, but I think this category can be very, very life-changing for a bunch of different reasons. I really plan to get into reading philosophy a lot more this year. If you think about it, these are the original great ideas from the people who spent all their time thinking. And it's so crazy when you see an idea from back then that is still here today and still holding strong. And now, like in Jonathan Haidt's example, can be proven with science to be genuinely beneficial to human flourishing. And it's so fun when you find a good one or you find a really, really great passage in one of these books. The way the ideas are proposed and knowing where it's coming from, it really, really gets you thinking and gets you curious, and I don't know, it's one of my favorite things. Definitely has the potential to make you a little different and a little better in some way. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It's actually one of my most requested videos of all time, oddly enough. I hope this list is as lit as I think it is, and I hope you get a lot out of it and it changes your life. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. See you later.